I'd like to invite everybody to the April 3rd, 2018 Harrison City Council meeting. If you'd please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to ask everybody to remain standing. Mike Maines is going to provide the invocation for this evening's meeting.
If I can get through the chair roadblock.
Boy, I've led a lot of kids in the circle or doing prayers for upward soccer and basketball over the years, and so we always at the end say, and all God's children said, and you're supposed to answer amen. So we're going to play that game tonight if that's okay. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just come before you tonight. We're just humbled by your presence. We just thank you that you are in charge. We also thank you that we have minds that think and rationalize and work through problems. And I just pray that you would guide us as we meet this evening, as we listen to what our visitors have to say, as we listen to all of our questions, as we take care of the business of the city, that you would just bless it. Help Harrison to continue to be the city that you have called us to be, to help the leaders to be the people you've called us to be, and the citizens. We're all in this together. I pray that you would bless this meeting and bless this time together. And all God's children said,
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Please take the roll call.
Abrams.
Here.
Menninger.
Here.
Grubbs.
Here.
Lewis.
Here.
Dole.
Here.
Maines.
Here.
Galindo.
Here.
First item on this evening's agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes for March 20th, 2018.
So moved. Second.
Do we have any corrections or additions? Please take the roll.
Abrams.
Yay.
Menninger.
Yay.
Grubbs.
Yay.
Lewis.
Yay.
Dole.
Yay.
Maines.
Yay.
Galindo.
Yay.
The only invited guest we have this evening is Duke Energy, and to introduce them, we have Andrea B. Hannon with Duke Energy here, and I believe Cindy would like to make a comment as she's coming to the podium.
We're going to wait here till they all come in.
She was in the lobby.
Yeah, they're in the lobby. All right, so here's Andrea and our team from Duke, team of engineers, right?
That's right.
All right. So you want to go ahead and
Yes,
introduce?
thank you so much for having us here today. We are really honored to be here in the city of Harrison. Thank you so much, Mayor Nyer, Councilwoman Abrams, and the entire council staff. You know, I just want to say that, you know, we take reliability, you know, as a top priority at Duke Energy, and that's why we make the investments that we do into the grid, and making sure that our grid is reliable, that it's resilient. And so we have our power quality team, our management, Nick Malello is going to speak with you all, answer questions that you have. Thank you.
Again, before you start, Nick, I just want to thank you guys for coming and, of course, accepting our invitation to come here tonight and obviously discuss our recent outage issues and answer some reliability concerns. I'm certainly proud of the partnership that we've established. I'm not sure if you all are aware, but Duke Energy granted downtown Harrison, our historic district, a beautification grant last year. So we're really excited to see, you guys will be seeing, you know, the money that we're putting in downtown and whatnot. So again, I'm looking forward to hearing your findings and solutions. As the mayor said, the question and answer session, you know, write down your questions, send them up here. I have some specific ones here. And if your questions are not answered by their presentation, please don't be afraid to send a question up, and I will go ahead and ask all these questions here with them tonight after their presentation. And really quick, I also invited all of our adjoining trustees to the meeting here tonight. So if anyone is here that's a township trustee, I'd like you to stand up really quick and introduce yourself, just so if we have any township residents that are here, they can actually direct their questions to the appropriate elected official, because we all try to work together, of course, in the 45030 zip code. I see Rick Dole back there. Rick Dole's here. All right, so Rick Dole, Harrison Township, welcome. Anybody else? All right, Thank you. It's all yours, Nick.
All right, well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Nick Malolo, and I'm the manager of the Power Quality and Reliability Group for Duke Energy, covering the Ohio and Kentucky territory. And with me, I've got Jerry Wolf. He's an engineering technologist, and his main area of responsibility is investigating larger outages. So after there's an outage, he'll go out a week or two after to see if there's anything more significant that can or should be done at that time. And then also with me, Lou Flores. He's the lead engineer in our planning group. So he takes a bigger picture, longer term evaluation of what can be done in the area, in this area specifically. And what I wanted to do was give you an overview of the upgrades that we have planned for the area. And really what that entails is installing several new state-of-the-art isolation devices to break up the service into much smaller pieces. And it does a couple of things. One, it allows, when an outage does take place, it'll impact a much smaller footprint, fewer number of customers, and it allows those devices to communicate to the other devices to determine really where that outage took place, and it reroutes power around accordingly. So in the past, where you would have experienced a longer-term duration outage, in the future, once the plan's in place, you may see the lights flicker on and flicker off a couple times, and that's those devices communicating, determining where the outage is, and rerouting power accordingly. And then in addition to impacting a smaller footprint, it will also allow us to pinpoint the location of that outage much sooner, so we can dispatch crews to that location rather than searching, potentially miles of circuit to determine where the outage took place. So it allows us to locate the outage quicker, and then obviously restore the outage quicker if we know where it is sooner. And the upgrades that we have planned, they will be in place this fall at some point in time. We're pushing those as hard as we can. It takes time to design and we can get the equipment, but we are expediting that as fast as we possibly can. And then in addition to going over the kind of the overview of the plan, which I simplified, I'm sure Lou could talk an hour about the details of it, I wanted to give you a better idea of what has caused the outages and what we're doing both proactively and reactively to mitigate those. And the number one cause of the outages is vegetation. So it could be tree branches or entire trees falling down and coming in contact with the lines. And we've got a couple things in place for that. So number one, every 4 years, we do a full circuit trim. So we start at the substation and go the entire circuit and trim. It's about 10 feet on either side of the circuit of our equipment. And we also at that time, if we see any trees that are further than 10 feet away that we think pose a risk to the equipment, we will ask the landowner if we have permission to take down those trees. And sometimes we get permission, sometimes we don't, but we do our best to encourage them to take down those trees so they don't cause outages. So we've got the full circuit trim, which was last done in 2015. It'll be next done in 2019. And then at the time of outages, so we send crews out to restore power, and when they're there, if they see a tree, say one branch fell down, and they look at that tree and they see either other branches are partially falling down, or that tree just looks like it's in bad shape and poses an imminent risk, we will dispatch a veg crew at that point in time to take care of the issue. And then again, as I mentioned, another layer we have in place for the larger outages, Jerry will go out and investigate. And sometimes the crews are out there, it could be dark, it could be stormy, they may not be able to see everything clearly. So Jerry will be out and he'll look for things like additional trees in that vicinity that pose a risk. And if he sees something, he will dispatch, again, a veg crew to take care of them at that point in time. So that covers definitely the largest driver of the outages. So we've got proactive and reactive steps in place for vegetation. And again, the upgrade plan where it breaks the service up into smaller pieces, we're not going to prevent every tree from ever falling down. That's just not realistic. Trees are continually dying, and we're doing our best to get them before they fall. But in the future, if they do, or when they do, I should say, because we broke the circuit up into smaller pieces, again, we'll be able to restore power much quicker once that plan's in place. And then the second category, so there's a pretty good drop off from the vegetation to the next category, and the next category is equipment failure. And so we've got, again, both reactive and proactive steps in place for equipment failure. So at the time of the outage, we'll have a crew that comes out, and they will obviously restore power and either repair or replace that equipment depending on what the exact issue is and what is appropriate at that time. And then we also have more proactive steps in place for the equipment issues. So we've got several inspection-based programs, and one of them is a line patrol program where we start at the substation and we have people literally walking down the entire length of the lines, looking for any evidence of arcing or other issues that indicate there could be an equipment problem, and we address those problems that are identified during those inspections. Another inspection program we have is every 10 years, so those line patrols are done every 5 years. And then the pole inspection program, that's done every 10 years on all of our poles. And that is a more thorough integrity check of the pole itself. So we actually drill small holes into the pole to check the thickness of the pole, how much good pole thickness is left. And you'll see a lot of poles, especially if they're in kind of, shallow divot type areas, you get water ponding around them. So they have a tendency to rot if they're not replaced on a more routine basis. So every 10 years, that is done, and that's another inspection-based program that hopefully proactively mitigates a lot of those equipment failures. And then there's other equipment, kind of some of the more sensitive critical equipment like the isolation devices I mentioned we're going to be installing. And then there's voltage control devices. Those devices are inspected annually, and anything we find, we follow up on that. We're actually required by the PUCO, the commission in Ohio, to complete those repairs. So it's not an option for us. We find it, we have to complete it. And then there's even more sensitive equipment in the substation. That is checked on a monthly basis. And again, we're required to remediate anything we find at that point in time. And just like with the vegetation issues, if there's always going to be an equipment issue. You can't proactively find anything. You can't, look inside some of this equipment. So there's going to be equipment failures in the future, a lot less based on the inspection program we have in place. But again, if and when the equipment does fail, it's going to impact a much smaller number of customers. We'll know where it's at a lot quicker, and we'll be able to restore it a lot quicker as well. And then the third category of outages, so the vegetation is definitely the biggest. Equipment failures next, and we got another somewhat significant drop off to the third category, which is outages caused by the planned upgrades that we do. So anytime we see trends, not necessarily in this area, but across all of our territories of certain types of equipment that are reaching the end of their useful life, underground cable is a good example, we will actually institute a program where we proactively replace that equipment. And in some cases, we can do that work energized, and in some cases, we can't. So if we can't do the work energized, we will send out, I think it's typically phone calls. I think you can maybe adjust your settings. You might be able to get emails. I'm not exactly sure how that works. But you'll get notification in advance if we do have a planned outage coming up. And so sometimes we need a planned outage to do that proactive work, and sometimes we determine that that work can be done with the lines energized. And in those cases, it can be done with it energized, but we do need to take additional safety protocols to protect the linemen working on it. So if they do come in contact with it, that line will immediately be de-energized, and you won't have the off and the on that some of these isolation devices, if you don't change those settings while they're working, that isolation device will try to clear that fault, and it'll go off and on a couple times, and obviously that's not a good thing if you've got somebody that came in contact with the line. So we change those settings while they're working on the equipment when it's energized, so it immediately trips off. And that's obviously good for the safety of the linemen, but the downside of that, if you have a tree or a branch that kind of comes in some tangential contact with the line, or you have a squirrel or other bird or something like that get in contact with the wrong equipment, it will create an outage that had they not been working on that, we wouldn't have seen otherwise. So again, that's done for the safety of the personnel. And then the fourth category of outages, it's kind of lower on the frequency, is public damage. So that could be a car wreck, running into a pool, that could be a dig-in on an excavator or something like that, digging into underground cable. And there's not a lot you can do to prevent things like that, but again, the mitigation plan of breaking the circuit up into smaller pieces, rerouting power, knowing where the outage is much sooner, and being able to restore that outage much quicker is a mitigation plan we have for the public damage. So that's really kind of what I wanted to go over, is the plan we have in place, the main causes of the outages, and both the reactive and proactive steps we're taking. So at this point in time, if there's any questions?
Okay, so you're ready for this. So the first question says, with the rapid growth in Harrison, what has Duke done to upgrade equipment to meet demand? Or what's in the comprehensive plan that you mentioned?
Yeah, so as far as the capacity, and Lee may be able to weigh in a little more on this, but so there is no capacity constraints, and I actually meant to say that was not one of the causes, because I think, Andrew, somebody mentioned that was a concern. So the substation capacity is not an issue, and the lines themselves capacity is not an issue. So there's not any capacity constraints. That's not causing any damage. But again, all of the proactive upgrades, the inspections, the installation of these isolation devices, whatever's causing the outages, that will mitigate them.
So basically, just to make it completely clear, there's no capacity issues. Things aren't on overload because we're growing out here, obviously north of the city. That's where the growth is, Parks of Whitewater, all of that.
That is correct, yes. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, why is Carolina Pines 7 miles from a substation? That's a neighborhood off of, you know where that is? No?
Generally
This-
familiar.
Caroline Trace.
Yes.
Caroline Trace is basically towards the end of the whole circuit.
Okay.
So Willie or Wiley's station, I don't know how you pronounce it.
Either way.
Whatever you want to say.
That station is all the way out at the corner of Wiley and State Route 128. And that line follows in Wiley and then down to New Haven. And intersperses through New Haven Road and some of the subdivisions there, and then it goes up Carolina Trace where it just stops. So basically, Wiley substation is the closest substation to that area.
Okay.
So Lou, I don't know if you can speak to the upgrade plan, the installation of the new isolation devices and how that might benefit that area?
Yeah, what Jerry was saying is true, that Carolina Trace is at the end, I would say the end of that circuit that feeds the general area. So if you picture something happens right in the middle of that circuit, we might be able to isolate it, and then you might open the switch, and everything will be dead past that. Then we can get the rest of the circuit in the front end, but that leaves Carolina Trace and all those other customers out. But we do have other circuit, what we call circuit ties. So we have circuits that all over Cincinnati, a lot of them will tie to each other. There'll be a normal open switch. The switches are on the pole. You probably drive by them every day and you'll see them. These are normal open switches, and we can transfer load back and forth really any time, but typically that takes a crew to get in the truck, go out to the location, put the footers down, go up in a bucket, and operate the switch. These devices that we're installing now, they're electronic devices. We can communicate with them. We can get the information back. We can give them information. And so we're putting a number of these up all over the system. I believe there's 6 or 9 new ones that we're going to put here on Willie. And how this is going to benefit, especially Carolina Trace, is that there is another circuit that ties right at Carolina Trace at the intersection of that road, and I can't remember what the main one is. But for let's say a comparable outage that I was discussing, if we can isolate that outage to the middle of that circuit, and we can do that quickly, we can basically re-energize the front end of the circuit, and then with this remote device, we can energize the back end also. And this is called the self-healing peak. And that's what we're going to have set up here, so that this will be done almost automatically. You still would probably see a few blinks. You may see an outage for several seconds, but that's the brains of the team, the algorithm going through and determining where's the outage, what's going to be open, what's going to be closed, what's the maximum number of customers, the maximum number of load that I can pick up right away. And you'll see that happen, and then we'll isolate the circuit to the smallest possible area.
So that's the plan for the future, or that's happening right now?
That is happening right now.
Right now, okay. And then, so this might or might not be, it's related to the Carolina Pines question. So can we tie into the New Haven via Progress Way? Would that make sense to do that, or no, instead of Wiley? Is there a substation there also?
There's not a substation.
I don't think so.
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Well, it just says, can we tie into New Haven via Progress Way?
So Carolina Pines subdivision, the power comes from Carolina Trace Road down into the subdivision. It makes a long loop to a dead end. At the bottom part of that loop, they're very close to Progress Way, which is a street off of New Haven Road, which that would be a second point to enter energy into that subdivision. So they're asking if there could be a tie-in made between those two portions of the circuit.
Well, I have to take a look at the geographical outlay of how that sits, but, those are things we look at all the time.
I think it's
Another program that we're doing is called Connectivity, where we're looking at ways to get other ties, to create other ties, improving the size of the conductor that we have, such that in the event of an outage, instead of maybe picking up 800 customers, we might be able to pick up 1,500. So those are some of the upgrades. So it's certainly something that we can look at. It benefits not just the customer, but it benefits Duke Energy also, having those customers on at any time.
Can I fill in some missing information from that question?
Sure.
That question's being asked because that's part of the city that's served by a different substation. Typically, when there's a power outage in our area, it's only one side of the city, and the Carolina Trace side of the city is out 80% of the time, when the other side's only out 20%. So they're served by the other substation, I can't remember the name, that comes into Harrison. So that's Carolina Pines subdivision is very close to the end of that circuit line.
And it's a new subdivision.
It's a brand-new subdivision.
That would be something where, again, you have an adjacent circuit, and, part of it's perception also, because we have some areas where, we have some streets where you have one circuit on one side of the street, you'll have another circuit on the other, and over on this side, they're saying, my power's out all the time, yours is always on. The other side's saying the same thing, but when your power's on, nobody's looking across the street to make sure that.
No,
that-
we
And the
do every
problem with
time.
that question will be this, or that observation will be this. One, I would say a good chunk of the folks here are in Carolina Pines. And when you look down the hill, you see the lights on. Perception is out. And if we look at it, and you have a couple council members that do live in that subdivision. So when it is out, saying it's perception, it's personally cost me $1,500 because of damage to the house, because of sumps going out in this weather and what have you. So, I mean, perception is reality in many cases, and that's why you have a full room tonight. And there's one question that you guys said on capacity I just want to address real quick, if you don't mind. You said capacity is not an issue, the grid's fine. At what capacity are we running right now, and where do we have the ability to flex up to? Because there seems to be an issue where power's out. I've lived in 28 countries, and I have power out more today in Harrison than I have in third world countries.
Now, wait a minute, though. From what I understand, though, Harrison's really not even, all of your service area, we're not on your list of the worst offenders, correct? Where the power is out. I know everyone thinks I'm actually being serious. Or do you not know that?
So the Willie 54 circuit has been on the list. I know it was not 2 years ago, and I believe this past year it was on the list of the worst 10%.
Right. So obviously, talking about your comprehensive plan, there is a
That's why
plan.
we're accelerating. So that
Correct.
plan wasn't just something that, Lou thought of here recently. That is something that Lou does for all of
Right.
these areas and was in progress of being developed, and we have accelerated that plan.
Right. Okay.
But I think it is very fair to say that I think Lou can look at the plan he has proposed to see what could be done for Carolina Trace and possibly could be tied into Morgan. I don't know. I think Lou would probably need to evaluate that a little bit closer to determine exactly what could be done.
Well, and again, anytime there's opportunity to perhaps be able to restore more customers in the event of an outage, I think when the exception is true, we're going to have outages. We will. What we try to do is limit the number of those. And when they do happen, is to try to make the duration as short as possible. And as far as equipment goes, touch on equipment replacement, things like that, yes, that's all part of the reliability push. It's all part of what we do to try to keep the power on as much as possible.
What's the definition of significant? Because there was a comments that had been made that some of the issues weren't that significant, or they fell in levels of repetitiveness. But I would say to this room, there's a high level of significance that we're feeling. So what's the definition that Duke is saying is significant and is acceptable and failure?
So when I mentioned significant, when Jerry would get involved to investigate, it's 500 customers or more out at a time is when Jerry would get involved.
And I'd like to chime in if I may, and I apologize, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name.
Galindo.
What we can do is take that concern about Morgan 51 and the Willie Circuit and have our engineer take it back and look at that. So I think that's what we're getting to, is seeing what we can do to mitigate the.
Absolutely. And I think we want to be proactive instead of reactive, and it seems like there's a lot of reactiveness. Absolutely, and we appreciate that.
So we will take that back and do some evaluation, see what we can do.
Thank you.
And so just to follow up on that, I don't know if Carolina Pines is on the same circuit as New Haven, out of town in the township and whatnot, or of course, Farmview, Oxford Road, up Carolina Trace, and obviously the Parks of Whitewater. That's all new. I don't know if that's all the same circuit or not. That's where the outages have been most recently, every single time. So maybe I can send you all this specific information, and you can get to it, obviously, and kind of investigate.
And from what I understand, it's the northern part of Harrison, is that right?
Yes, not this side of the highway, the other side, right.
Okay.
So, okay. Are there grant opportunities for Duke for homeowners to purchase an in-home backup generator?
So I can speak to that. In-home backup generators. So at this time, on the Duke Energy regulated side, there are not programs like that. And we do have a Smart Saver program, and that is kind of limited right now as far as funding. So we can certainly share that information with your council, so that you can get that on the website or our newsletter.
Okay.
Just that Smart Saver incentive. It's on our Duke Energy website under incentives or energy efficiency. And so a generator, not so much, but upgrades like furnaces, if you're
Water
doing
heaters.
lighting upgrades, things like that, but we can certainly send that information.
Okay, so that program's called Smart Saver. It's not for, I'm just going to reiterate on the camera here, so it's not for in-home backup generators, but it's for, your water heater and your furnace and those upgrades. Okay.
Yeah. But I'll look into on the retail side of the business. There.
Okay.
We have a regulated utility side of our business, and then there's also the retail side.
Right.
So we can certainly point residents in that direction.
Okay.
So
So-
with energy efficient appliances and LEDs and compact fluorescents, what is our year-over-year consumption as a customer of Harrison? Is there any way to get that information? Are we using less? Everyone is trying to be more green. Everyone is trying to reduce their carbon footprint and have a lower SEER rating. Are we seeing that? And with that happening, we would assume that there's less demand on the systems and on the infrastructure, which should relate to better reliability.
I would not be able to answer that question for you today, but I can look into our marketing groups who work with, the residential energy efficiency programs, who have there's a residential program, we use Honeywell to come out to do some analysis. It's a free program. If we need to get Harrison on that list to do some assessments, we can certainly do that.
No, you'd almost have to do a historical analysis of the total consumption for the area.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I would
Just
not-
because
it's
of-
not my
yeah.
area, I would say, but I can certainly see what is available and what they can do.
But again, I just want to reiterate, so it's not a capacity issue or a usage issue.
What capacity are we at on the current grid?
So I don't know if, Lou, you know that off the top of your head or not, so.
What is our rate of capacity right now? What level of capacity are we at, and how much more growth do we have on the current grid?
Well, you kind of have to distinguish between which part of the grid.
Right now, the one that's out.
Well, speaking specifically to the utility per circuit, probably on a rated capacity, the circuit itself, I'm going to say off the top of my head, that if I would guess, maybe 60%.
You're at 60% utilization?
60% of the capacity. And then, you have to take into account, well, what governs that capacity is at the substation. I want to get into a lot of technical things, conductor size, things like that. So when you talk about the grid.
Does the age of the equipment?
Between, the grid that serves Cincinnati was a specific single circuit. So that's what I'm assuming you're talking about. And then there's 4 circuits that come out of the substation.
And that's the substation that you're going to upgrade with these plans. Now, let me ask this, what's the timeline? You said it was accelerated, so what's the timeline? Can we kind of look forward to having that
Yeah, so
upgraded?
this fall, so,
This fall?
yeah, this fall.
Okay,
An exact date is to be determined. It's going through detailed design right now.
okay.
And it does take, this is some pretty specialized equipment, so it takes some time to get that equipment, but it'll be this fall.
Could you
Okay.
keep us informed of that? So when we have folks asking us questions on status of that, we can answer intelligently?
So these other, there's one more question, and then there's just some concerns here with people that own businesses and whatnot, and obviously, power outage affects business. And I'm going to actually send you this specific, this is all about, and you might have to do a little investigating, like different times the power was out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different times since January. I'm going to send you these dates so that we can get these answers back to the people that ask this specifically. That's probably not something that you could rattle off right at this moment.
Probably not.
Okay, just, right. All right. So we appreciate that, and we'll look forward to getting these answers here. And then one more. If the second most common reason for failure is equipment failure, then why do you say more coverage, i.e. expansion, doesn't cause failure?
So again, it's not the capacity, for example, the circuit or the substation might be at 60% capacity. So you could add a good bit of, say another 20%, and it's still not the capacity causing the issues, it's particular equipment that is failing. And again, that's why we do the inspection programs, to try to get that before it fails. And again, we're not going to proactively prevent every piece of equipment from ever failing. That's just not cost effective to go out and replace everything every 3 years, right? That wouldn't
Right.
be feasible, rates would be too high.
Right.
So that additional isolation devices, when equipment does fail in the future, will have a smaller footprint and will be restored quicker.
So that equipment plan is part of the upgrades this fall also?
No, so that's something we do everywhere.
Just
all
everywhere,
the time.
all the
That is
time.
an ongoing inspection program.
Okay.
That we do everywhere in all of our equipment.
Okay,
The major equipment on this circuit that they're replacing is some of this stuff that's been failing through different logarithms being wrong on them or whatever. But replacing this equipment is going to be a major upgrade to what we have now.
That is
Okay.
a good point. So we do have some of those isolation devices in place today that Lou mentioned, but it's an older generation, so we're getting the updated state-of-the-art devices that really should not fail near the frequency that the ones in place today are failing.
so those upgrades are happening now, currently,
So no, those are being in detailed design right now. and
Right
that's
now.
will be
Okay.
implemented by the fall.
by the fall, okay,
Yeah.
got it. So then basically, to speak on, I'm sure everybody wants to know this, so can we count on you to come, back to us with this information, whether it be, with an upgrade, obviously an update this fall when everything's in place, but we'd like to have an update, at least whether you're physically here or via email with these findings. Can we count on
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. Any questions you have, we'll definitely follow up on and
Okay.
provide updates on the upgrade plan, for sure.
All right, we appreciate it.
So I have a couple questions. We've focused on the north side of the city and the Willie substation and the circuit that it feeds through into the city. What other substations serve other areas of the city, and how far are they from the city? We know that Carolina Pines is about 7 miles from the Willie station, so on the south side of the city, what serves that and how far are they from the substation? They've seen a market improvement in the last 10 years in reliability on that side of the city. 10, 12 years ago, the wind blew wrong, people would say, and the power would go out, and that's not true anymore on that side of the interstate. So where does that power come from, and
Why is it
just
more
give us a little bit of information about that, because they're not here, but I'm sure they're interested.
I'm going to tell you why it's improved, because we got a whole house generator. I'm just kidding. Sorry. So, go ahead.
We're thinking about one.
No.
The south side of Harrison is fed from Morgan substation. Morgan substation is located on
Dry Fork?
Dry Fork. Mhm.
Yeah, which is probably 2 miles south of Harrison, Harrison Road, on Dry Fork. So that feeder feeds up Dry Fork up onto Harrison and then down into the main part of Harrison here. Downtown Harrison also has Harrison Station, which is fed. It's a lower voltage station which is fed from the Morgan feeder. So that's sort of mainly, I think, the downtown area, certain streets in the downtown area. But those are That's where the substation, that's where it's being fed from.
And then, is there any interconnectivity across the state line?
Across the state line into.
Indiana. Yeah, so the city borders the state line, and
We're the end of the road.
I know that most of Indiana over there is IMPA or REMC, there's different groups, but is there interconnectivity between Duke and those companies if there was a need to get power?
I'm not sure. I think there's regulation between crossing state lines with distribution. I think there are some parts of one of our circuits that may cross that state line, and like a smaller piece. But as far as the interconnectivity across the state line, aside from that, I don't know of any
Okay.
personally. But I think there is a strong regulation about that.
I know that every utility has a very strict regulated territory that they serve. And to go beyond your line, that little line on the map, whether it's a political or geographical line, but there's repercussions if you don't get the right permissions before you cross it.
Correct.
And
You know, we do take metering points, such as in Indiana especially. We'll take a circuit out of maybe like the Hoosier Energy substation to serve some load, because that load may be small enough that to invest the capital to build a substation to serve that small amount of load. That's just not, that's not economically wise to do that. And then some of the REMCs would do the same at our stations also.
But that's all within the state of Indiana. I don't think we have that same ability across state lines.
That's correct, yes.
So is the service coming out of the Morgan substation more reliable because there's more circuits that you can reroute power through to get to the south side of Harrison? Because, I mean, from what I've witnessed in the city, it's that power coming out of that substation is much more reliable than what comes out of the Willie Road circuit.
On a thing, is it more reliable? I would say at times.
Okay.
If you think about how we're on a tree trim schedule, you know, the first couple of years after you trim a circuit, obviously, you're gonna get a lot fewer tree-related, vegetation-related outages. As you get towards the end of that, you know, you've got some trees that grow very fast, you've got others that grow slower. If you get to the end of that, you may see more of that vegetation-related outages. Now, the Morgan circuits, and in conjunction with some of the Willie circuits, are already on a self-healing team. And when we have these devices installed, we talked about in the fall, we're going to incorporate this Willie circuit, this Willie 54 circuit, into that self-healing team that's comprised of other Willie circuits and the Morgan circuits.
So those circuits do interact with each other?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So we could lose service halfway between the Wiley Station and Carolina Pines, and you could reroute power eventually from the Morgan Station to service our neighborhood. So that's where those devices are going to come into play.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we do that now, and you know, we've done that for years.
It's manual.
As I said before, though, right now with manually operated switches, you've got to send a crew out, set up a truck, open a bucket truck, and operate these devices, which is time. You know, it's a truck roll, it's boots on the ground, whereas these devices, without the algorithms, we could open and close them from downtown.
Okay.
With the algorithm, it will do that automatically.
Okay. Well, that kind of makes that question about taking the power from Progress Way into Carolina Pines a moot point, because if those devices are installed and you can reroute that service from the Morgan substation, then because we're basically at the end of the Wiley Road circuit. So if it goes out anywhere along that circuit, we're dead until everything's fixed. So,
And I think that with the installation of these devices, you know, you're talking about capacity. The gentleman was talking about capacity-related issues. in the algorithm for these devices, it actually has the ability to look and evaluate we call these a fault. Okay, so the tree comes down to there's a problem on the circuit. It evaluates what each of these devices saw before the fault and is able to say, well, I can pick up this much load, but if I try to pick up more, I'll overload the circuit, I'll overload the device. So they're smart devices, they have the ability to evaluate, determine what is the best way to isolate the problem and restore as many customers as possible, given the load that's there. If it's in the middle of the night and the load's down low, maybe it'll pick up a lot more customers. If it's in the middle of summer on a peak day, where you're reaching the peak load on that circuit, then they'd be fewer. But these devices have a way of evaluating that and making the best choice. So obviously, you don't want to pick up too many customers and then take the circuit back up.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, obviously, there's probably a log of what the faults are as things go out, and then you have a service team go out and take care of the situation if you're not handling it from a remote downtown location. Is it purely trees? Because when I sit there and I think of the path from the Willie Road substation, and I think of the path from Whitewater Township to downtown, I think of less trees. And hack them daggone trees back if we have this many. And that's what it comes down to. I think it's going to come down to people sacrificing their one side of their tree.
I'll give you an example. This past week, last Friday, or Thursday or Friday, there was an outage on the circuit. And I'm the boots on the ground. I go out and look for the root cause of these outages. So this outage, along with two other outages, happened on the same stretch of circuit within the last year. And it goes into a right-of-way off of New Haven Road, just west of Short Road. There's a creek that runs through there.
Yep.
Yeah, and that line runs down through that, kind of crosses over the creek. Well, when that creek was flooded last week, it washed out the roots of one of the trees, which was 60 feet away from the line. That tree was a 70-foot tree, so when it fell, it came down into the power lines. And that's happened 3 times now. So, that's one of those things that's way out of our easement to trim. So that's where we would have to go get permission from a customer to be able to cut these trees down. So there's 3 outages right there in this past year that happened back in that right of way. So when I'm back in there, I'm looking for what we call danger trees, any trees that are dead or may have the possibility of, when they fall, hitting our lines. When I do find that kind of stuff, I will contact our vegetation management. They send arborists down, take a look at the trees, see what they can do, see if it's feasible to take them down. And they also contact the property owner to get permission.
So can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Yeah.
Is there a line or a hotline? You guys can't be everywhere at all times in all places. So if a property owner or someone sees that there's damage to a tree that could present a risk, is there a number that they can call to have you guys come out and either investigate or to trim that back so that we don't have to have an outage? If we could be proactive and do some preventative maintenance, so that if this is your number one area, you're not making money when power's out.
Right.
But if there is a hotline where we can call in and say, I got a tree that's branch is cracked, or to your point, it's an 80-foot tree, 60 feet away from a power line. How do we trim that and be proactive? Is there a service that you guys do for that?
I was just going to say, I have reported stuff before. If you go to the internet site, there's a report a problem link on there. I mean, my biggest problem is a daggone squirrel, It's tripping the darn fuse in the front of my house. But I'm on the lower Harrison grid, so I'm lucky.
And I'm not talking
But
about
I
our
grew up in
neighborhood, 'cause
Butler County.
Our trees aren't but 15
Yeah.
feet tall. We got small
Yeah.
trees, we're a new community. But it's these communities that we're talking about that's saying that there's risks out there. How do we prevent them?
Now, of course, our tree board members are probably very upset
I
right
just
now.
planted some trees. They're small
That are
trees. but-
watching, because we are Tree City USA, thank
Well,
you very much. And so we need to be very careful on what we trim back, so.
Pruning.
Anyway,
Pruning.
go
Not
ahead.
removing, pruning.
But you can report a problem on the website, yeah.
Mr. Dole?
One of the scary things, I don't know if you look on the sides of the roads anymore, is the ash trees. There's scads of them.
Yes.
They're dead, and they're outside of the right of way. And a lot of times, I know like on the Division Road, the trees, it's a very steep hill, the trees are dying, they fall, they hit the line. Some of those property owners don't even live around here. We've had to try to do nuisance complaints, and they may be in Florida, somewhere else, and they don't even answer their, so it's really tough to try to get to the point of getting the permission from the property owner when these trees are out of the right of way. And they're, like I said, they're everywhere. They're
All
I
over
don't
the
know how many
place.
park cut down, and how blue spruces are short, they're falling.
Ma'am, you didn't get to finish what you were saying?
No, I think that you'll answer the question, so on the website, it's kind of fun. You can report an issue, problem. You can also call our customer service line. Residents should definitely do that if you experience an outage so that we can start tracking that individually. I would say that that's what you all look for when you're doing
Yep,
your
absolutely.
assessment.
Yep.
So definitely on our website. I'll make sure that Ms. Abrams gets all of the information that we've discussed today, just like the quick, what am I trying to say, just numbers that can be shared to with residents, information on energy efficiency. I have a whole list of information that can be shared that will be helpful as a resource for residents here.
So what we'll do when I receive that, I'll share it with council, and then we're happy to share it on our city Facebook page. And also, if anyone wants that information specifically to your email box, just write your email down for me, and I'm happy to send it over to you. So,
And if there are follow-up questions, if there are follow-up questions, after this meeting, certainly feel free to give those to Ms. Abrams, and I'll follow up on those individually.
I'm going to send you all these, though.
Okay.
I'm going to send you, type them up and send them.
To just gentleman's issue here with the ash trees and everything. There are no live ash trees in this area anymore. They're all dead. Duke has allocated a lot of resources in taking down these trees, and when they do their circuit trims, they look for these trees specifically also in their, while they're doing their trims. They're not gonna hit all of them. I think they look about 45 feet off the pole line. It's the furthest they'll go back and look. But a lot of Duke's resources have been allocated, and we cut down thousands of these things every year. Just doing our circuit trims, and when I go out and do an investigation like I did on back there in the creek, when I evaluate that area, and if I see danger trees, and that area called danger trees, which are mainly dead ash trees, I send a request to our tree trimmers for them to go out and evaluate it and to take them down. Because, if one's falling down, take them, circuit out, the other's gonna do the same thing. So, it's not going on deaf ears with these trees. We allocate a lot of resources.
Well, I understand that, I'm just saying that a lot of the ones where it's out of the right of way, and you don't have the authority to go into the property, and you can't get in touch with them. They're the ones, especially on these steep hills.
Yep.
And they're falling over, and they're hitting lines, and they're losing branches, and there's a lot of them, there's tons of them around, the ash trees.
I think they will take care of those trees if it's an imminent danger that they say, well, and the next wind will blow will knock it over.
Yeah.
They'll do what they can to take care of or mitigate some of that issue. So.
You spoke, is vegetation being the number one cause? Do you subdivide it out and look at things like the emerald ash borer issue is now increasing the vegetation outages by 10%, or, you break that down and
Believe it or not, when I go out and look at these outages and I find it's a tree that caused the outage, I myself have to become an arborist. I got to figure out what type of tree it is, what condition the tree was in when it fell, how far away from the line it was. So we take and store.
so all that data is being stored. Yeah, but can you speak to that? I mean, are you, because of this disease and killing the trees, are you seeing an increase across the Ohio Duke Energy grid because of that? Okay.
Yeah, I would say probably 40% are caused by the ash trees.
Right.
And then the more vibrant live trees, it's mainly branches breaking off, falling down the lines.
And then we spoke about Willie 54 being in the worst 10%. I mean, is that, how does the circuit get into the worst 10%? What are the reasons for that? You know, and what do you do to get it into the top 10%? Right.
So we report to the commission every year the worst 10%, and there's obviously always going to be a worst 10%.
Mhm.
And we also report a mitigation plan. And I think in this year's mitigation plan, it was assessment for vegetation, that we're doing additional assessments on vegetation. And then, of course, the upgrade plan we discussed earlier is going to go a long way to mitigate a large majority of those issues.
Okay, well, if that's it, thank you, Duke, for coming out. We certainly appreciate it, and thank you to all of our residents here who came out from our community. We do appreciate it. We always want to invite you back, of course, to our council meetings, the first and third Tuesdays of every month, 7:30. That's all we have.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
May I ask one question? I got here late, somebody brought it up. I live up on Brooks, it goes across from Lawrenceburg Road up to Bond. And, I have a handicapped grandson, we use a lot of equipment for him. And we have a lot of times, I don't know what's causing it, but like night before last, and I'm there, I have to jump up every time his machines go off. But 1:30, it was a quick, it's just a break in the electricity, and then boom, it's back on, everything goes crazy after reset. 2:30, boom, same thing again, seems like only out. 3:30, same thing again. And it's not out for a long time or anything like that. And now, before I came down here a little while ago, same thing, boom, and some of it, it's so quick that some of the equipment, like the microwave or something like that, it doesn't even knock the timer out, but it'll knock out his equipment. The TV will stop, but it's so fast it comes back on. And we seem to have a lot of that up there. In my situation, I'm trying to get my son-in-law to help me put in a full house backup generator. But when that stuff happens, he has a lot of equipment on it tonight, and I have to reset everything. It's got a battery backup, you have to reset it all when you get started on a lot of it. And I didn't know what supply is at on that strip from Bond over to Lawrenceburg Road. It's like a stretch across there. And I came out here 5 years ago. We got here with my daughter to take care of him. When I first got out, it was really bad. It got better, but it seemed like all of a sudden it's quick. It used to be out for like an hour or two at a time. It's these little quick things during the night, go almost all night. I don't know what could be caused. It's not where it goes out completely.
What you're seeing basically is the system working. Most of the outages, believe it or not, most of the outages that you see on the distribution system, very short duration. Tree limbs, either brushing the lines during a high wind storm, lightning, things like that, very short duration. And just like in your house, you've got fuses, or you may have a breaker panel fuses. When those trip, you have to go downstairs and reset those. We utilize fuses on some of the smaller taps, which when those blow, those require somebody to go out and reset those. These devices that we're talking about, the electronic devices, are called reclosers. And when they detect a problem, they will de-energize the line for a very short period of time. And that gives whatever's on the line, whether it be a tree limb, again, squirrels, somebody's talking about squirrels, it gives a chance for whatever's causing that problem, whatever's causing that, the fall, to clear itself, to fall away, to pull away. And so you'll see that. Sometimes you'll see that it's like a very quick blink. Sometimes you may see 2 or 3, because these are set up to give 3 tries for whatever's causing the problem, right, to clear itself, to fall away and restore the line. That way, we don't have to send a crew out, and you're not out for, like you were talking about before.
If you go on Brooks, it's just like a death row at Brooks. You start at the hill from Lawrenceburg Road, all those trees, the limbs are constantly falling off. They're laying over the road itself, and they're dead. 80% of them, I think, go up the hill there.
Those are all the ash trees.
And they're
Yeah, I drive that road every day.
On your car, you go up through there, the danger of them getting on your car. And some of the light poles, I know they look very good, but we working on one. The light pole itself hillside, something going on there, something moving, but the trees are really bad. It's very, I have to follow my car all the time, just driving home, whatever.
What road was it? Did you?
Brooks Road.
What is your specific address?
7243 Brooks.
And if you're seeing, if this seems to be like a regular thing, you say you're seeing it almost on the hour,
It did like the other night, it was just like every hour, it was just like 1:30, 2:30, 3:30, and then it didn't do it anymore.
typically, when you talk about outages and things like that, they're very random. When you see something with a pattern, always at this time, 8 o'clock in the morning, or 9 o'clock at night, or on the hour, I see this.
Yeah.
That could be something else, it could be a nearby business, it could be something with the transformer that's on the pole outside your house. So I would say, well, Nick's got the information here, but when something like that happens, certainly call to report that. Investigators, technicians that will go out, take a look at your service. If the problem, they can't find anything, if there's still a problem, you're still having that, they may come out and set a voltage meter, which will record your voltage over several days, and see if that doesn't give us a clue as to what may be causing.
We're on the hotline for you guys, we power goes out, we call for our grandson, they, by the way, puts the top priority. But our electricity's underground coming down to where we live, it's all underground.
This makes me feel so every time there's an outage, it went on Facebook, which is kind of nice. So I said today, I said, hey, we have an outage, who's affected? Because I have friends that live in all the neighborhoods around us. So pretty much there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 outages between December 22nd to March 29th. And I can give you the dates. I know you already were seeing that. But what I've realized for each of the outages is it's always Hickory Flats, Parks of Whitewater, Carolina Pines, and then it goes from Carolina Trace all the way out to Oxford Road. And then if you do Carolina Trace up the hill to Carolina Pines, I don't know how far back it goes that way. And then it's always in back of front piece too. So it's like it's almost like
Butler
a
County
little
comes down.
rectangle area, and I think it's about 1,400 residents. So I know 2 of the 6 outages was 1,400 people. And the last outage on March 29th was 1,411.
I know.
So, and then I know there was an outage on January 6th where Parks of Whitewater lost power 3 times. So that, I'm not sure. I know it was a really cold day that day, from what I remember. Okay, there you go. That was your number.
They couldn't find it.
Gotcha.
That's where
Okay.
they're out there searching for the faults.
Okay.
So what happens with that is they don't find it, they don't find the fault, they'll drive the circuit, look at the circuit, they don't find the fault, they call back in to downtown and say, close the circuit back in. Let's see if it stays in. Well, they close it in and it opens up again, and you're out of power again. So they gotta go back out and look. So that's why you have 3 different outages, because they tried it 3 different times.
And that really goes back to the upgrade plan that we have in place. So we will not have, if it works as designed, and we have no reason to think it should, we will not have outages typically that would impact 1,400 customers. It'll be a smaller number of customers. And again, we'll know where it is and be able to address it much sooner.
And Teresa, I have all that. I'm going to type up everything you put on there to them, all the dates and everything else, the neighborhoods. Yep, got it.
Well-
I have a question. Years back, when it was Cincinnati Gas and Electric, then Synergy, the facility where they kept the trucks and equipment around here was in Montford Heights. Where do you keep your equipment, and where do you dispatch your crews to come out here? I mean, when the power goes out, how much of a lag time is there from the time the very first call? I mean, I know people who have you on speed dial. As soon as that sucker goes out, you're getting a call, because I even try to beat it. They'll say, sorry, I didn't record it, that didn't address the problem. So my question is, once you get the call, do those folks have to come from Montford Heights? Do they come from Miami Ford? Where exactly are they coming to physically
Dispatch time.
deal with the tree, deal with the poles, and the other thing that's sort of a sidebar, been a customer of Cincinnati Bell for like over 50 years, okay? I still got a landline, not always living here in Harrison. I know it's apples and oranges, but I can almost count the times on one hand where I ever lost phone service because of trees or anything else. So what I'm getting at is, you're dealing with many issues here, but is there a way that you could have crews out here quickly, or are they being dispatched expeditiously as they can be, or what's the excuse?
Well, we have crews that run out of Queen Key, which is almost downtown. And then we have crews that run out of Fairfield.
Okay.
So, but those crews aren't just sitting in those districts. They're out doing switching and things at night and during the day. To help, for these projects like Lou's doing, they'll go out and do switching to get it ready for them to go out and do their work, crews to do the work. But these crews are out all around.
Now, are
the areas.
your crews, or are they like pipe electric and all these other?
These crews that go out and look for outages, they're new crews.
What's a landline?
Let me tell you about that. I have a question. You mentioned, Nick, upgrades.
Yes.
And you talked about switches, and you might experience power, burps or something, or it goes off and comes back on, it goes off and comes back. We all have electrical appliances, furnaces. What kind of damage is that going to do to our equipment if we are going to have more of those episodes where it kind of goes off, surges? Are we protected? Is there some sort of anything we can do about protecting our expensive equipment that we have?
I don't know, Lou, if you can speak to that a little bit more, but so unless the equipment is overly, so we have like large industrial customers have very sensitive software for, manufacturing process.
Furnace.
Right. So
For me, a $7,000-$10,000 furnace is a big deal. So, and I know that there's services, or used to have something called surge protection on energy. I don't even think that's available anymore, is it?
can you speak to the impact of equipment for that type of operation?
Good question and good concern. Fortunately, let's go back 30 years. These reclosers and the things that we were talking about, they were in use back then. They were in use in the 60s and the 50s. They're hydraulic, which means they weren't electronic, but they did the exact same thing. Just didn't have all the communication with them. Coming into the 70s, 80s, when the onset of the microelectronics, the LEDs and things like that. Everybody had their Mr. Coffee and their microwaves and things like that. They go to work, they come back. If there was one of these outages, you could see it. The clock, you had to reset your VCR, you had to reset your clock and this and that. So that technology was ahead of, what I always call a typical utility technology. They're using the same equipment they've always used, but now your personal devices are a lot more sensitive to that. I come into today, and they're a lot more robust. So you buy the same things, a lot of alarm clocks, battery backups. Your computer probably has something that'll help it ride through an event like that, because those events are what you will find in a typical utility anywhere you are. So now, as far as your equipment, I sympathize. I lost a very large TV about 5 years ago. The same thing in our house, the power going off and on from a storm where I live on the east side of town. I tell the kids if there's like a storm, a big storm, unplug the computer, unplug the TV. You can get the lightning protection, which certainly helps, especially if it's certified. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's foolproof. It's foolproof. So, in cases like that, I would invest in something like that, some sort of a surge suppression device. I'm not talking about, the little strip outlets. Basically those are just a breaker a lightning strike on the line is very quick, and you can get right through that. It has to be a certified surge suppression device.
You can buy those. You can buy those at different stores.
It's on the meter. It's actually a head that screws in, like, fits in, and it's between the smart meter and the wall box.
And I think
We sell them.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
what I got.
I was going to say, you can buy those and they actually provide coverage through them. So. But, you know, I appreciate you gentlemen coming out and spending the time, ma'am. Greatly appreciate it. And obviously, if there is anybody else that does have questions, please reach out to any of us.
Yeah.
And we can make sure they get sent over and get properly vetted. So, but with that, I think
Yeah.
we want to roll on. So.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming out. You're welcome to stick around, but if you'd like to leave, we won't
all
make you
boring
stick
now.
around. The rest is just a typical meeting.
Good idea.
So we'll move on with the business portion of the meeting. Next item is approval of a resolution indicating services are available for proposed annexation to the city of Harrison from Harrison Township to consent to said annexation. This was the item that was tabled last meeting with the new petitions been submitted, so it's, we're going to have to certify again.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on this? Okay, would you please take the roll?
Menninger.
Yay.
Grubbs. Sorry.
Yay.
Lewis.
Yay.
Dole.
Yay.
Maines.
Yay.
Galindo.
Yay.
Abrams.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that 4?
That's resolution 4, 2018.
Next item is approve an ordinance to revise the codified ordinances by adopting current replacement pages thereto. This is a normal update to the code so that we can continue to reflect the state statutes in our local ordinances.
So
Keep
moved.
us in compliance.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, question. I happen to have one of the code books. Do they then send those out to us automatically?
There are certain ones in the city that we get a number of copies. If you have one of the copies that the city gets an update for, you'll be provided that. If not, let us know and we'll get one ordered for you.
Thank you.
The next item is approval of an ordinance.
I got it.
Oh, sorry,
Roll.
roll call.
Okay.
Sorry. Hank threw me
Grubbs.
off.
Yay.
Lewis.
Yay.
Dole.
Yay.
Maines.
Yay.
Galindo.
Yay.
Abrams.
Yay.
Menninger.
Yay.
That's ordinance 8, 2018.
Next item on the agenda is approval of an ordinance to amend the amount appropriated to various funds of the city of Harrison.
So moved. Second.
Any questions on the appropriation? Please take the roll.
Lewis.
Yay.
Dole.
Yay.
Maines.
Yay.
Galindo.
Yay.
Abrams.
Yay.
Menninger.
Yay.
Grubbs.
Yay.
That's ordinance 9.
I had no visitors sign up for the visitor section. Are there any members of the audience tonight that would like to address council? Come forward to the podium, state your name and address.
Bob Cox, Carolina Pines Drive. I have great respect for Duke Energy and all they do. They serve over 850,000 customers in the Kentucky and Ohio area that's over 3,000 square miles. It's a difficult task. That said, with all due respect, I think there's more that can be done to serve our neighborhood. And what I'm asking for tonight is support for a specific request, and I'll pass this up, but she would pass this around, please. I would like it vetted that we can look at tying in the neighborhood through Progress Way. I'm not satisfied with what I heard tonight with the switches that they're putting on, with Circuit 54 being that far from the substation, that we're really going to address. We're still going to be out on the end of the limb, pardon the pun. And by the way, there are no trees on Progress Drive.
That is true.
I think it is the mutual benefit of the neighborhood and the Duke Energy to upgrade their reliability, and for the city, because public services and the pumping lift station is at the bottom of that neighborhood. And I believe that is fed off of the underground utilities in the neighborhood, because I see no other power lines. So we would improve the reliability of the pumping station, we would improve the reliability to the neighbors and the Duke's line. Every time I look down the hill, as was stated earlier, the lights are always on down on New Haven by Progress Drive, and in fact, the Kia lights are on, which I find frustrating, but not picking on Kia. But I mean, basically, the reliability of that grid, because I believe it's served off of Morgan, is so much better. I would like this, I'm requesting your support to have that option vetted for us.
Well, what we'll do is I will get the contact information with Duke, and I will send them the request to evaluate that for a potential improvement to the system. That's not a problem. I probably would have heard about this reliability issue in Carolina Pines much earlier, but the people I know that live up there have a whole house generator, so I don't hear about it. But Mark lives up there, or Bono lives up there. I know several other people that live up in that neighborhood, but I don't have near as much contact with them. But we will send this proposed, and I don't know that it's on a separate portion. It might just be a different area of the grid of that Wiley 54 line. So it might be where it makes a turn there at the library, maybe something between there and your neighborhood. I don't know. There has been some reliability issues. That's how we contacted them, asked them to come out and give us the information. But I will definitely put this forward to them as something that I would like to have them evaluate.
Thank you for your consideration.
I'll follow up with that too.
Thank you, Mr. Cox.
Do we have any other people in the audience this evening that would like to address council? If not, then we'll move to the report section. The mayor's report, I'd like to thank Duke Energy for the time they took to come out. The steps that they've explained to us that they're going to be taking in the near future to improve reliability of the power in the city. I would like to remind everybody that whether you were here or not, that if you had questions that weren't answered, to get them to one of the council people so we can get those to Duke. Be sure to provide contact information, because we'll get your answer back directly to you, but we also have that answer along with the question asked posted on our website in the future, so that other people can see that in case they had the same question but just didn't have the ability or the desire to put it forward. Some people are kind of shy about that. So again, I'll take this suggestion from Mr. Cox and put it forward. Cindy's in the communications committee. She chairs that. She's kind of been spearheading this. So if you have anything, any one of us are willing to help you, but she's probably going to be the key person that's going to funnel all the information onto the website, because that will prevent duplications. If I do it and Ryan does it and Mark does it, there's going to be 4 and 5 versions of it up there, and one point of contact to get it onto the website is going to work the best. That will conclude my report. Does the law director have a report this evening?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I do not have any report this evening. Thank you.
Ms. Abrams, do you have a report?
I do, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And just to touch on that, yes, so what I'm going to do is type up all these questions and concerns, and then anything that you guys have that you want to add, just send it over to me, so we have one email going into Andrea. And I'll add Mr. Cox's suggestion and scan this in and send it over to her also. Anyway, all right, Economic Development Committee met tonight. The owners of the Coffee Peddler have been issued their permits for the construction of Heist and Company Wine and Beer Bistro at the old bank building, 108 Harrison Avenue, right next to the Coffee Peddler. They hope to have construction complete by late fall. The theme of the bistro is pretty cool. It's the banking and the area bank robberies. The existing vault will be used for wine storage, so I'm sure you will keep an eye out for that business opening here later this fall and visit. UDF has submitted applications for several variances to build a store/gas station at the corner of New Haven and Carolina Trace, across from the library. The variance for signs, lot coverage, and conditional use for gas auto-related service pumps will be considered at the April 24th BZA meeting. The landscape plan has been reviewed by the tree board and is enthusiastically supported except for the change of one tree species. That information has been sent to UDF and the change will be in the condition of support. The store will be virtually identical to the one that opened in December at 6075 Harrison Avenue in Green Township. It's at the corner of Harrison and Wesselman. An open house was conducted March 15th for the city's new comprehensive plan. Minor changes presented in that draft are now being completed and will be presented at a public hearing on April 10th at 6:30 p.m. before the 7:30 p.m. Planning Commission meeting. Revolving Loan Committee meeting in March, two $20,000 loans were approved on the recommendation of Hamilton County for Business in the DRD, Downtown Redevelopment District. They are for facade work and window work in the KIST building at the corner of State and Harrison, and for facade and interior upgrades to Market Street Grill. It is expected that those loans will be closed in a meeting with Hamilton County next week. Our next meeting for economic development is May 1st, Tuesday, at 6 p.m. Harrison Recreation Easter program was a success. Thank you to everybody who came out. Everyone enjoyed the Boy Scout pancake breakfast, the egg hunt, and games. And of course, thank you to Legacy Church for sponsoring our games. The district food truck rally is May 19th. It's a Saturday from 4 to 10 p.m. Join us for delicious food and live music. Our next recreation meeting is April 11th at 7 p.m. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mayor. The Law Committee met briefly this evening. We had a couple of litigation items on the agenda, which we discussed in executive session. We also circulated to the Law Director just a couple of points to keep our eyes on with respect to cell tower legislation that's on its way through the legislature in Columbus that will give us the ability, to a limited extent, to regulate the location of some of these cell towers that are popping up all over the place. Also, we talked a little bit about the situation yet with respect to dispensaries and medical marijuana opportunity. Well, I don't call them opportunities, but these situations are going to be in front of us at some point, and we need to be cognizant of that to make sure we have legislation on the books to regulate it appropriately here. I do want to remind, Cindy mentioned April 10th being the public hearing on the master plan. If you have not yet had a chance to weigh in on the master plan, that's one of two more opportunities you're going to have. The other one, there'll be a public hearing before a council meeting. And we had a lot of new people show up at the last run, which was encouraging because we've had an awful lot of input now on the master plan. It's looking good. And we need to get it done because a lot of things are going on, a lot of things happening. I want to thank the people from Duke Energy for showing up tonight. That doesn't happen in every community, and we're grateful that they took the time to come out here and to address these problems. I also want to thank everybody here that had comments or that weighed in with questions. That's how stuff gets done. People see a problem, they bring it to our attention, and I'm pretty confident with the partnership we've developed with Duke over the years that the problem's going to get solved. And you've got a commitment from everybody up here that we'll stay after it. And but they've been a good partner with us out here, so I feel pretty good about that. But again, thanks for coming, seeing your government in action, and that's all I have to report tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Grubbs, do you have a report?
Just a couple items. I also want to thank the residents for coming because it's hearing your concerns, your issues, that can allow them the ability to go back, hopefully do a proper analysis and maybe come to amends with how the electric is routed. So appreciate everyone coming out and spending time this evening with us. So other than that, I really don't have anything other than finance is April 24th at 5:15.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, do you have a report?
Very briefly so that we can go eat dinner.
Yes.
The negotiations committee met this evening, and we started our fact-finding and information gathering part of what we need to do to start union negotiations this summer. So we kicked that off, and we'll probably be meeting again here soon to discuss some more. And that's all I had this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Dole, do you have a report this evening?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Streets, Utilities, and Wastewater Committees met tonight. A few things of note to report on streets. On Flintstone Drive, the reconstruction is set to be underway. Equipment material being staged, so if you see it down there, that's what's going on. As soon as we get a break in the snow or the rain, they should be able to begin. Probably the most important thing we wanted to talk about tonight is to let everybody know, starting April 5th, this Thursday, there's going to be a road closure. It starts, so the road closure is at the intersection of Dry Fork and Short. For the development going on out there, there's going to be an open road cut across Dry Fork Road. They're thinking it's going to take about 3 days to complete the road cut. So during the day, Dry Fork will be closed from the intersection of Dry Fork and Short to the intersection of Dry Fork and New Haven. So they'll have road closure signs up at each. It will be open in the evenings. They'll have it plated, but during the days, it'll be closed. So they're hoping for 3 days they'll have that finished. So that's something to watch out for. The only other item of note from streets was we did discuss some Parks of Whitewater signage. There's going to be some line striping, curbs painted out there to denote no parkings in lieu of stop signs being added on Tebbs Court. And it should be pretty much everything I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maines, do you have anything or a
Yes.
report this evening?
Yes,
I know you
Mr.
do.
Mayor, I will try to be brief. Tree Board did meet, as Cindy mentioned, and we had one species that we asked UDF not to plant, and they, other than that, we approved the landscape plan. I want to remind everybody that on April 23rd, in lieu of the April 24th Tree Board meeting, we will have a meeting at the Harrison Public Library at 7 p.m., and there we will be giving away 200 black gum seedlings as part of our Arbor Day giveaway. So that week, April 27th, Friday, April 27th is Arbor Day, so plant a tree that week. That's that. On the April 28th, we have the Township Cleanup Day, and I'll give out more details at the next council meeting, but that's from 8 to 4 p.m. Shredding will be from 10 to 3, and I'll put out a lot more information at the next meeting as far as what we'll be collecting and taking, but mark that on your calendars. And then that's all I have.
You did a wonderful job with the invocation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I can do that on the spur of the moment if I have to. Wife's better at it than I am.
Yeah.
You were in your element. Mr. Galindo, do you have a report this evening?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
No report, okay. So we have
Motion
a
to
motion
adjourn.
Okay. Please take the roll.
Dole.
Yay.
Maines.
Yay.
Galindo.
Yay.
Abrams.
Yay.
Menninger.
Yay.
Grubbs.
Definitely.
Lewis.
Yay.